it does bring us to a very controversial topic that has been an issue in the past with the Leafs, but it's going on all across the league right now, is the officiating. I don't really want to get too far down the rabbit hole. Cody did find some very interesting facts about the Leafs specifically, but it doesn't necessarily correspond directly with the problem. It is a bit of a conspiracy, but it's pretty interesting to listen to. So why don't you just take it away?
Yeah, so doing some research on this, we've been looking at the refereeing for this series. So just a quick thing about this, Mike Danton, he played with Sheldon Keefe, who's the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, together under coach David Frost in junior hockey in Deserato, Ontario. So Frost was acquitted in 2008 on 4 counts of sexual exploitation dating back to 1996 to 97. Keefe, who was Danton's teammate, testified against Frost in the trial. But Frost, his brother-in-law is Wes McCauley, who is the NHL ref who reffed the Leafs in Game 1 when Toronto lost 7-3. In that game, Lightning took only 4 penalties and the Leafs took 8 penalties, double what the Lightning took. Altogether, the Leafs are 0-8 when having Wes ref their games in the playoffs. With other referees, the Leafs are 17-17, and the Lightning have not lost a game yet this season under Wes McCauley. Some pretty interesting facts. That is very lopsided with a bunch of wins and losses.
Yeah. Now, crazy conspiracy. 0-8, I think for a team that's never been out of the first round is very possible.
Yep.
Right. That record also goes back to before Keefe was a coach with the Leafs. He was a coach with the Marlies, but I don't think for the conspiracy to happen, that would really matter. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe. The penalties for Game 1 was also 8-4, right? And both teams went 50% on power play. So, like, you take away the penalties, the penalty goals. What was the final score? 7-3. 7-3. So it would have been a 3-1 game, right? So it didn't really change the outcome. It just changed how many goals there were for this round, right? Conspiracy, yeah. It looks like there's facts, but again, it'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, then talking about the reffing situation, the referees of that game have now been moved over to the Minnesota Wild and Dallas Stars series. They've been, would you say, relieved of their duties of that series?
I think that's how it was worded. And then they got into controversy, aka bad reffing. But it's the playoffs, and there's always going to be a lot of noise around missed calls or calls that shouldn't have been made.
Yeah.
The whole missed calls and calls that shouldn't have been made have seemed to move up. But during the regular season, how many people are focused on every single game?
No.
Right.
When it seems like now it feels like it's the year or the years of having social media on your side, and you can say whatever you want. You can look back at the video, say whatever you want about the refs, but in game time, like if you were to see that in game time in the stands, think what you think, but you don't have the ability to look back on a replay and then yell at the refs, or that's like what you have the ability to when you're at the game or watching on TV. The refs have only the ability to see what they see in that action time. They don't have the ability to go look at it again, like what you guys get to do back at home, sitting on your couch, and then slow it down, see where he actually hits you or something. They don't have that ability on the ice at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a little important to say that we're not picking sides, both being players and coaches. Like, I enjoy the refs. we need the refs. I think it'd be a terrible game if we just relied on, like, air quotes, Toronto making all the calls and stopping the game when a call needs to be made. I think there was one year where, like, it seemed like every whistle they were going to the cameras and checking something, and it just slowed the game way down and just got boring. So there will always be mistakes. There will always be missed calls or calls that should not have been made. I think the ones that have been seeping through the cracks have just been a little bit more outrageous, right? Like, there's been a couple diving ones that's like, okay, well, a guy got cross-checked from behind. You're going to fall down. Like, you can't keep your balance when you get cross-checked from behind. A guy going for a hit misses and gets called for tripping. Like, that's not really tripping. Like, yeah, the other player fell down too, but the guy going for the hit, like, the player dodged a hit and just ended up getting clipped.
Yeah.
For me, that's a good hockey play, right? Knee on knee, that's a different story. But if you go and try to get out of the way of a hit and you fall down, you're fine, right? It's either get blown up or fall down.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I think the whole reason why this thing's getting blown up, refs are going to make bad calls. They're human. Happens every sport, a little bit more in certain sports because of the action coming so fast without the replay. But I think why I think all the time when the playoffs come, the refs get hate and it's always in the first round. There's 8 teams per side, so 16 teams. The very passionate fan bases, there's always going to be one missed call on both sides, and both fan bases are going to be blowing it up on social media, right? And then the analysts are going to slow it way down and be like, right here at the point of impact is when they should have called blah, blah, blah. Right? So it'll be interesting. Maybe there's a fix to be made with a third ref somewhere, like on the bench or something. But who knows? That's way down the road, and I know the NHL isn't really going to be worried about that for a while. It's not like, I guess the controversy on the Toronto Maple Leafs thing is because there could be a little bit of bias there, but any other series, take away the Toronto series, I don't think that the refs are out there to pick one side or the other. I think if in that hit, if the Dallas player went to hit the Minnesota player and the Dallas player got the penalty, it would be the same. He would call the same thing no matter who was wearing which jersey. I think that's another thing you have to take a look at. It's not like the refs are there calling purposeful penalties on certain teams because of who they are.
Besides Wes McCauley.
Yeah, and that's the one controversy which we're bringing up with the Maple Leafs.
But it gets brought up every year, right?
Yes, it does.
Like, the only way around it is if the NHL doesn't send, or I guess it's really the NHL OA officiating, I don't know, whatever the refs union is. If they just don't send Wes McCauley to the Leafs series.
Yeah, and that's
keep him on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of hockey for him to go ref. Anyways, getting on to the Western Conference, unless you had anything else to add.
Nope, good.
Actually, I do have a question. LA Oilers, do you think that was a high stick? It's hard to see.
Hard to tell. I personally thought it was high stick, but yeah, I'm not sure. Either way, the way that I view this as, high stick or not, if that puck's coming down the same trajectory as it is, no matter what, I don't think that it made the biggest impact on whether or not that goal was going to be scored or not.
The only way it would make an impact is if a player close to the puck on the other team stopped skating, thinking that it's going to get blown down.
Yeah. Like, I don't think
But
that,
then that's on the player because you have to play until you hear the whistle. Like you can't anticipate.
yeah. Like my view on that is it may have been high stick, but either way, I don't think that there was a big enough impact on that play of the puck turning edge enough for it to dictate the puck going in or not.
Fair
Yes,
enough.
but that's the NHL rules are the rules, and if it gets high sticked, it's high sticked. I think there's so much commotion on that because maybe it touched it, maybe it didn't, and the fan base of Edmonton is huge. They're just gonna blow it up that they got robbed.
There actually is a reffing controversy. Couple calls in the Rangers Hurricanes game. I think it was game 4. One was like a goalie interference, but the defenseman clearly pushed the player in.
Yeah.
And they scored on that power play. Another one was a diving. And so it's all over, right?
Yeah.
Bad calls are all over. But to wrap up the ref talk, goalies, we don't care about the refs. We want to respect it. So maybe we get a couple calls our way.
Yep.
So hand the puck to the ref, say thanks, say, hey, that was a good penalty. Even if you don't agree with it, just make the guy feel good about themselves because then you're in their good books.